But Ken, Alvin, do we have some of the mechanized cavalry here today?
Yep.
Okay, great. We certainly appreciate the support. That's the Confederate motorcycle group. And we greatly appreciate the support that y'all give us each year. Certainly do, and I know they come from all around. So thanks to them and to everyone. We appreciate the people coming from all over Georgia and out of state for this ceremony. Wanted to mention that we do have back here at the table, we have some free booklets, Prison Pens of the North, that tells about a lot of the prison camps up north. We don't hear about that in the news any time, and they're free. So if you want, Butch, do we still have some back there? Okay. And then James Madison Page was a Yankee prisoner here at Andersonville from Michigan. And after the war, at some point, he wrote this book. It's a paperback book, The Truth About Andersonville Prison Camp. And we have it. It's back there for $6 if you'd like to get one of those. I don't know if we still have some more of the Save Our Monument signs. They are free back there if you want to get one. Okay, do have a few there to put in your yard. So anyway, go by there. I'd like to ask everybody that's here on the stage, including Elena, and also Kelly and our Tennessee Army Commander, and also our Honor Guard, if y'all, whenever the cannon finishes being fired over there, if y'all would still hang around the monument there so we can get some group pictures, because we'll have these in the Georgia Confederate, we'll have it in the newspapers and the Confederate Veteran magazine. So anyway, just please remember to do that. We will take our, after we finish singing Dixie, we'll take our wreath out to the monument, and then we'll have the cannon firing, and then that'll conclude our service. So certainly do appreciate everyone coming. Let's see if I left out anything. On the program, it somehow or another got left off, but if you did want to get in touch with our SCV camp, it's P.O. Box 126. The 2 got left off. That's there on the back of the thing. He's the commander of the General Sims chapter of MOSB in Columbus, which I'm a member, and also he's a lieutenant commander of the Georgia Division for the MOSB. So if you'll come forward, Steve.
Thank you, James. I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody coming today. It's been a wonderful service, and I am so thankful that we're able to do this, and we've had the good weather that we've had, and that there's so many young people that are out here, and hopefully y'all are going to try to follow in the footsteps of your ancestors and our Captain Wirz, Major Wirz. The man he was wrongly tried and convicted, and what they did to him was terrible. And it's just the same thing is going on pretty much today as it did 155 years ago. You know, I think we can kind of look at what's going on with some of the elections and some of the mistruths that have been told. And anyway, I again thank you very much and appreciate y'all coming.
Thank you, Steve. Next we have Miss Charlotte Chambliss. She'd run across a letter from actually the lady, I think, was about 80 years old when she dictated the letter, and she dictated it was it to her daughter, and then all of a sudden got down to the end and just stopped. So anyway, but she tells how she was a young teenage person there in the 1860s and lived in America, and she went up to Andersonville prison camp while it was going on. So anyway, she's going to read that letter.
Uh, I am a retired school teacher of 34 years. I'm happy to say one of my students is sitting there, and one of my students is over there, and we're going to have a big reunion because I've not seen him since he was 9 years old. Watch out. My husband came across this letter from a physician who treated the daughter of this lady, and I have a small letter that she dictated, but this was handwritten by her. Is anyone here 11 years old? 14 years old? 80 years old? Raise my own hand. Okay. She experienced the beginning of this letter when she was 11 years old. By the time that she was at Andersonville, James and I figured that maybe she was 14 years old. And this is a perspective of how the war affected the young people, especially girls. As I'm all alone this evening, memory wanders back to the days of my girlhood. In some way, my thoughts turn to the dark days before the war between the states began. How exciting it was to us children when Father and his clerks who boarded with us came home after the day was over and sit around the fire and talk of the news of the day and that we were sure to have war. How dreadful it seemed to me, as the men said, they would all have to go. How frightened we were, and what would we do if Father had to leave us? Days passed, and our anxiety and fear knew no bounds. It grew darker and darker, and finally news flashed over the wires that war was declared. Can I ever forget when my father told us, and the dreadful sleepless nights we spent, and what excitement there was all over the country? Crowds of people standing on every corner, and the all-absorbing topic of going to the war was being discussed. Companies of soldiers were gotten together at once. The Sumter Light Guards, Cook's artillery, is all I can recall tonight, and soon they were ready to go to defend their rights and property. What a sad day it was when the first company left. Everybody went down to the train to see them off. Mothers, wives, sweethearts, all were there, for they all realized that many would never come back again. And it is seldom in my life that I have ever known a sadder day than the day our soldiers left for war. My childish heart was all torn and grieved, for I knew so many of the men that had given up everything and gone. My father was detained at home and given a most responsible position, as well as one of high honor. He was made colonel of the commissary department, with many under him occupying the house where the Sheffield store is now, and all the ties that were sent from this part of the state went through his office. It was a heavy work, as they too did the shipping of it all. Meat I have seen piled to the ceiling in the store, besides flour, meal, syrup, and how the people denied themselves and lived hard so as our soldiers might have food, many at home and my own home. Wheat was dried and parched for coffee, and potatoes, sweet, cut in small cubes, and also dried and used for same purpose, besides other grain and seed. And flour was scarce and very high, so many ways were contrived to make our food as appealing as we knew, with little to do it on. The hardest years were 62, 3, and 4. Clothes were giving out, and children growing, and we had to begin to get away for some new ones. So Mother at last found someone who could weave. So a loom and spinning wheel was bought, and cards to card the cotton, and a room in the yard fitted up to weave and spin in, and soon everything was going fine. and we had some new homespun woven and made into dresses. The first were little blue and black checked and quite effective, and Mother had them touched up and bound with black about the waist and sleeves. And I was as proud of my new homespun dresses as I was of any silk I ever had when I was a young lady. My shoes were made of the apron, the storm apron, that was kept rolled in front of the dashboard of our carriage. And they were very nice, and so we had to contrive all kinds of ways to get our wardrobes, and could never get anything to correspond as we would like to have had them. Hats were hard to get. We had those made of palmetto, plaited, and they were really very becoming. Oh, if we just could have had the style of the present day. Tight, short skirts, and so bright in them, and no stockings, how fine it would have been. Well, although the strain of getting food to eat and clothes to wear was hard, we never lost sight of our soldiers. And when the prisoners and our own soldiers were brought to Andersonville, the ladies formed a society. The Ladies' Aid Society it was called. And every day so many were appointed to go to Andersonville to take food to the sick soldiers. I went up several times, as we were appointed by a committee when to serve. We had to prepare the food ourselves. But to me, it was always a sad day to see our sick and dying soldiers with no comforts. The hard, improvised cots they had to lie on, all suffering so, and others dying. And then I went to where they were preparing the meals for the well, of cauldrons of soup and hardtack, which to me did not seem appetizing. We went up on outside of the stockade by way of a narrow step, which ended on a platform near the top of this high fence, you might call it. You could look over and see the captive soldiers, and it was a marvelous sight to a child. And afterwards we went to where they were burying the men who died the night before. It was a long trench, and I saw them take the bodies from the wagons, wrapped in only their blankets, and laid in this trench side by side and covered with just the earth. Our own soldiers buried same way, many of them. A great objection I had to going up, for there were so many fleas there, and they seemed to try to devour you while there. It always took Mother quite a time to get me free of them. Remember, she would stand me on a blanket, and it seemed they would hip-hop off. I neglected to say, when I first went up the steps to view the soldiers, at the top of the stockade I went with Capt Wirz and another person who was disposed to say ugly things and glory at their being captured and imprisoned, and they would, in return, would answer her in, and that is the end of her letter.